Hello, I'm William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and today I'd like to talk about a problem that I see in many homeschool families, and it has to do with anxiety that parents have, stress that parents have that has a negative effect on their experience with homeschooling. I see this again and again and again in homeschool families. Parents who are irrationally stressed out about things, stressed out about their children's progress, stressed out about what their children are learning, what their children are doing, what decisions that their children are making, stressed out about all these things, introducing all kinds of stress and trouble into their family life as homeschooling parents, and imagining that this trouble is coming from homeschooling or is coming from the children or some other source, when really the stress and the chaos and the difficulty, even the fighting in a family, is coming from the homeschooling parent. Homeschooling parents really need to get a handle on hypocritical stress that they introduce into homeschooling. And I'm going to emphasize it's hypocritical stress that parents introduce into their children's education. The reason why I say it's hypocritical stress is because anyone who accomplishes things in life, anyone who does significant work in life, knows that it takes time. Anyone who accomplishes things that are significant in life, whether it's study or works, business projects, etc., everyone knows that significant progress takes time. It's difficult. There are good days and bad days. There are times where things go well, times when things go slow, times when things go backwards. But the key to achieving great things in any area of life always comes down to one virtue. There's one virtue that leads us to great accomplishments, and that virtue is perseverance. I would say patience, but some people think of patience as just sitting around waiting. That's really not what patience means. So I'll use the word perseverance. Continuing to work little by little with a positive spirit, overcoming all obstacles, overcoming all difficulties, never allowing yourself to get discouraged, staying positive, and just continuing to march forward day by day by day by day by day. That's how great things get done. If, as a parent, you've ever accomplished anything great, you'll know that that's how it got done. It got done by perseverance. And maybe sometimes parents haven't achieved great things, but they want to achieve great things through their children. And because they don't have much experience achieving great things, they imagine that the way you achieve great things is by working really hard or, giving it all of your energy for long extended periods of time during the day. And that's really not how great works get done. That's not how they get done. And if you've never accomplished anything great, you have to learn how great works get done, because homeschooling, the education of your children, is a great achievement. It's a great work, a great undertaking. You're not going to accomplish this work with stress. You're not. You're going to crash and burn. You're going to make everybody miserable. And thinking that you're doing something good by introducing stress or trying to push everyone and pressure everyone is actually going to be the cause of its failure. You have to listen to advice on this. Homeschooling is a great work. If you can achieve the goals of homeschooling, you're a hero. It's an incredible undertaking for parents to take upon themselves the work of guiding their children through a great Catholic education. That's an extraordinary work. And you have to respect how difficult it is. You have to respect how long it's going to take. And you need to learn how to pursue it in a responsible way, because adding stress and fighting and pressure with anxiety and all these things, you're going to be the cause of the failure of your children's education. And you have to learn how to manage the work of homeschooling. The key is not stress and yelling and pressure and complaining and criticizing. That's not how it's going to get done. It's going to get done by having a positive attitude, by making the most of every opportunity day by day, by being free from stress, by trusting that all things will go well as long as you do your best, and encouraging your children, helping your children, supporting your children. That's the only way to do it, and you have to persevere over a long period of time. Just think about the time that you have available. If your son is 12 years old, you've got 8 years before he's even entering into adulthood and has other decisions to make. You've got, 6 years. If he's 12 and you've got until he's 18, you've got 6 years. Multiply those 6 years by 365 days. Now take that number, multiply that by 24 hours a day. Think of how much time there is. Can your stressed, anxious, high-pressure, critical, complaining spirit possibly endure all that time? It's not possible. It's not possible. So if you're stressed out and anxious and arguing and fighting with the kids and all this stuff, you're not going to maintain that intensity for the years and thousands of hours that you have ahead of you in homeschooling. And what's going to happen is you're going to burn out. The whole thing is going to fall apart, crash and burn, and you're going to be blaming all kinds of things, this and that person and this person and that. And the truth is you are going to cause your homeschooling to fail, because that anxious, stressed out spirit is just not able to persevere. You've got to take this stress out of the homeschool environment. It makes no sense. The stressful homeschooling parent makes no sense. There is so much time. The work is great. It's going to take all that time. You're not going to get it done quickly. There's no shortcut. It doesn't matter how hard you push for a small period of time. You're not going to get it done. There's too much work to try to get it done quickly. And if you simply work consistently, day by day, for a long time, you'll get great things done. There's nothing to be stressed about. This is a Christian problem. This isn't just some academic philosophy. This isn't just teaching advice. This is a Christian problem. Jesus taught us, he said, do not be anxious. He said, take no thought for tomorrow. Take no thought for tomorrow. And there's a reason for that. The reason why you can't worry about what's next or what's coming or what lies ahead, you can't worry about those things because that worry will screw up what you do today. That worrying about the future will negatively affect what you have to do today and your ability to do it. You have to be calm. You have to be joyful. You have to be present-minded, positive, helpful, unselfish. You have to be in a right state of mind today to make the best use of the present. And all of this anxiety and stress about tomorrow and what's coming and that's just all a distraction. Useless waste of energy for what can be done today. And what the children need in your homeschool, what your children need is help with what needs to be done today. Your stress and anxiety about tomorrow doesn't help them at all, makes their life miserable, doesn't do anything good. And what I'd like to warn you about is ultimately it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical. You don't hold yourself to that standard, and you turn around and pretend that you have some high standard for your children that you really don't have, because if you did have such a high standard, you would understand how these things work. If you really did have such a standard where you were a person who achieved great things in life, you would understand that they take time and this anxious stress is useless. You would understand that. And so not only is the stress harmful, but it's hypocritical stress. These things take time. When I talk to the students, I often have great meetings, great tutoring sessions with the kids. The kids are happy to study. The kids are trying to learn. They're trying to understand things. They're tempted in all kinds of ways. They're trying to do good. And I talk to these kids, and I have great conversations with them. I see them making progress. I can see it when I keep track of their planners. I can see they're moving forward in their lessons. And yet I'll get messages and hear things from their parents about how the kids are not doing this and not doing this, and he doesn't like this and doesn't like this. And the kids are making progress. The kids are moving forward. But it's not at a pace that the parents have arbitrarily decided is necessary today, based on some anxious cares for tomorrow. And the kids are actually doing well. And the parents are creating this tension and confusion and making it miserable. And it's going to fail, not because the children were doing anything wrong, but because the parents just brought an irrational, stressful, confusing, hindering spirit into the homeschool. And I can't stress it enough. Parents have to get rid of this stress that they bring into homeschooling. Look, I understand that most parents who get into homeschooling, especially if they're getting started or if they haven't raised any adult children yet, they don't know what to do. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how it all is going to work. And so they imagine that what they need to do is, work their butts off and work like crazy and stress and push. And it's not how it works. It's not how it works. What a teacher does, an experienced, effective teacher, a teacher takes a body of content that he would like to teach a group of students. And let's say it's a book that I'd like to teach my students. I'd like to teach my students, let's just say, Aristotle's Rhetoric. And I have this book in my hand. And I look through the book and I say, okay, there's X number of pages in this book, and we're going to have classes for 180 days. So I'll take the total number of pages, divide that by the number of days that we have. Let's just say there's 360 pages in the book, and I have 180 days to work with kids in a school. An experienced teacher will take the number of pages, divide it by the number of days, and get a sense that I need to cover about 2 pages worth of content each day to lead these children through this book over the course of one school year. And once the teacher lays out that syllabus, lays out that plan for the studies, he then focuses on just one day at a time. He focuses on day 1 and he says, okay, my goal is to try to help the kids through the first 2 pages. And in day 2, he picks up, reviews what was in the first 2 pages and says, the goal of class meeting number 2 is to get through the next 2 pages and to continue this for 180 days. And at the end of 180 days, we'll have completed all 360 pages by just focusing on 2 pages a class, 2 pages each day. That's how an experienced, effective teacher handles the studies of any subject. The teacher is calm. The teacher is having casual conversations with the students. The teacher is able to develop good relationships with the students because the teacher knows what today's goal is. And the teacher takes no thought for tomorrow, but just concentrates on today's goal. And that's what keeps the classroom and the teaching and the relationships of that teacher's classroom calm and happy and peaceful. And the students get the work done. When I used to teach high school students, I remember that I had a reputation of being too easy. The students used to complain, not really complain, but they used to joke that I was too easy. And yet, at the end of the year, we would look back at what we'd accomplished. And the kids almost didn't even realize that we were making those accomplishments because the spirit of the class was just relaxed and calm. And I just focused day by day on a specific lesson. I never stressed them out. I didn't fuss about trying to, because I knew I had already done the work of planning and laying things out in my own head of what we needed to do. And I knew what needed to be done. And my goal as a teacher was to make it as easy as possible for us to get through the material. And when we would talk about how much we had accomplished, the students would realize that that was actually really easy. And I used to tell them that my philosophy of classroom teaching I call the TV principle. When we watch television watching is very pleasant. If I watch a sporting event, a basketball game or a football game, it's a very pleasant experience. There's no stress. There's no stress. You put the game on and you say, this game is going to last for 3 hours. You put the game on a few minutes before the game starts. There's a pregame show. The experts talk about what to expect in this game. They give a preview. They get you ready for the game. Then the game begins. All the players are identified, and there's play-by-play commentary. And then when a great event happens in the game, they then replay that event and replay that event and replay that event. And that continues until halftime when they take a break and they provide a review of what happened in the first half. They show the highlights again. They show the score all throughout the game. They provide game summaries all throughout the game. And then at halftime, they provide a review, and they also preview what to look for in the second half. And then the second half comes. They do the same thing through the second half, continuing to show highlights and replays from throughout the game. They come to the end of the game, celebrate the end of the game. Then they have a post-game show and review everything significant that took place in the game. And in a 3.5 or so hour period, you've had this presentation of the game. And you have a perfect example of how to teach. It's simple. You can relax. You can talk to your friends while the game is on. You can relax. You can go to the bathroom. You can get a snack because there's review and everything is And I always taught my students that I try to make class like a television show. I try to make it simple and easy. And we would accomplish great things in my classes. And I would have students winning awards on a national Latin exam or gaining great marks in their schoolwork and things like that, high SAT scores. And it was never stressful. It was never stressful. Now, as a homeschooling parent, you're not an experienced expert teacher. I understand that. You're not an experienced teacher. And it's difficult for you to be able to approach each day with that kind of order and simplicity, knowing exactly what needs to be done this day and focusing on that. It's difficult for you to do that. Maybe it's impossible for you to do that because you've got multiple children in different subjects, and you really don't know the subjects. And so what happens? You feel stressed. You feel stressed about what's going on. And when you feel that stress, you feel like the only reasonable thing to do is pass that stress onto the children. And the only thing you can think of is, we have to get done as much as possible today. That can be the only rule. We have to get as much done as possible. And so you drive them all, and if you see them playing with a game, or if you see them idle, or they're not paying attention and they're not working, you get provoked to anger. Now you're angry because you thought the only way we can succeed is if we do as much as possible. And they're not doing as much as possible, so now you're angry and you're stressed out, and it really has nothing to do with the kids. The kids are always going to play. The kids are always going to struggle to pay attention. They're always going to prefer to be out in the swimming pool rather than studying grammar. They would always rather be on the playground or out riding their bike or out flying a kite or just staring at the clouds. They would always rather be doing that. They will always rather be doing that. I would rather be doing that. This is work. And that's just not how work gets done, by stress and pressure, because the pressure will never stop. It will never be enough progress, because really, the real problem is that you don't know what needs to be done today. And that's the actual cause of the stress. And you pass that stress onto the children, and when you do that, you are messing up your homeschool. What you need to do in that situation, when you don't know what to do and you're filled with stress, you need to pass that stress onto an expert teacher who can tell you what needs to be done and how to manage it. A teacher can tell you what needs to be done. That stress that you have is not for the children. It's for a helper. It's for an expert teacher to help you understand what needs to be done so that you as a parent can calm down. You have to ask for help. If you're stressed about homeschooling, you don't know what you're doing. If you're stressed about homeschooling, it's not because the children are bad, it's not the curriculum, it's not everything else in the world, it's because you don't know what you're doing. And when you don't know what you're doing, the only thing that makes sense is to try to do as much as possible. And when the standard is to try to do as much as possible, anyone who's not doing as much as possible makes you angry. And that's what happens in the homeschool. But the problem is not the children. The problem is that you don't know what you're doing, and you need help setting goals for, let's say, the whole year, but also goals for the specific day, today's goals. And then when you have those goals, you can rest and just focus on getting those things done, and you'll see that it's not difficult. It's not difficult. But this stress is really destroying homeschooling, and it's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. It's hypocritical. It's self-imposed misery and vexation. It's not coming from education. It's not coming from the state. It's not coming from college admission. It's not coming from any future employers of your children. It's coming from you because you don't know what you're doing. And that sense that you don't know what you're doing leads you to this unrealistic desire to do as much as possible every day which leads you to anger and vexation, and it just poisons the homeschool environment. Now, the other thing to consider is when I used to take that textbook and divide it by the number of days, it was because it was the only time that I had with those kids. In the school I taught at, I had a 90-minute class, let's say, to teach Latin. I had a 90-minute class, and I had, 100 of those classes a year. So whatever I wanted to accomplish in that year, I had to first decide what I was going to accomplish. Then I had to divide it by the number of days that I had with the kids. And then each day I would focus on getting that specific part of the curriculum plan accomplished. And I would just focus class by class, knowing what I had to get done, having a realistic expectation for what I could get done. And I would work on that in a peaceful spirit with my students, having a good time as we work together to get the lesson done. When you come out of that school environment and you come into the homeschool, everything changes. Everything changes. Because the time constraint that I worked under as a teacher doesn't exist in your homeschool. The artificial time constraint, where I had just 90 minutes to work with these kids, that was because we were in a school environment. If I come out of that school environment and go home with my own children, there are none of those time restraints on what my children can study at home. I don't need to take the book and divide it by 180 days because we're not following the school schedule at home. And so at home we have even more time, double or triple the amount of time at home than I ever would have with students in school. There's far more time. We don't have to decide what we're going to study, which parts of a subject or which sections of a book we're going to study based on how many days we have together. We can study the whole book. We can study it across 2 calendar years because we don't have the constraints of the artificial school schedule. Homeschooling doesn't have these artificial constraints. It has more time. There's less time-based, content-based pressure. We have more time. It should be even more relaxed than a classroom can be. But parents don't understand that. And they think that by stressing they're going to get things done, and they just make it impossible. Impossible. It's impossible to maintain a happy family life with that stress just like a poison in the room all the time. The kids are going to hate school, and it's not because they're evil. It's not because the schooling is bad or the books are bad. It's because the pressure makes it so unhappy and miserable that they just hate thinking about school. And it's all self-imposed by the parents. Now, what I tell parents to do, because homeschooling is a totally different animal than classroom schooling. Homeschooling is totally different. There's no artificial school calendar. You have 365 days a year, and you're with the same kids every single year. You don't get one shot at a kid as he comes through your 11th grade English class. You have 10 years to work with the same kids. If you screw something up, you've got time to fix it. If they fall behind in a certain subject, they've got time to catch up. What I tell parents is you have to organize your family life and have a schedule for your family, what I call a default schedule, where you have a general routine that you go through each day. Because as a parent, you're responsible for the whole day, not just school like a teacher. You're responsible for waking up, you're responsible for cleaning the house, making meals, going through the school day, exercise, activities outside the house, religion, prayer, church service, on and on. You're responsible for everything. There has to be a schedule that takes all of your responsibilities into consideration so that you can focus on one day at a time. And once you establish that schedule, one day at a time, you can then focus further on 1 hour at a time. 1 hour at a time. You can have that present-mindedness to focus on 1 hour at a time and just concentrate on present tasks, present objectives. That's where peace comes from. Peace comes from that present-mindedness. The challenge that parents have is that they don't do this. They don't organize a daily routine that's got everything considered and is practicable. They either leave things out or they have no schedule and they just fly by the seat of their pants all day, which is miserable. Or they make a ridiculous, impracticable schedule that there's no way for the family to keep. And so they torment themselves by this miserable schedule that they created that's just impossible to follow. You need to establish a realistic, practicable daily schedule. And so if you were to ask somebody like me, what should my schedule look like? And I were to tell you, and you would say, no, I want to cram more of this, more of, you're not going to practice that schedule. That's what's wrong with that schedule. Jesus taught us this. He said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. There are many amazing things that your spirit would love to do. You are willing to do these things, but you can't do them because you don't have the strength to do anything that you wish. For example, I would love to give every poor child in this town $10,000 for their next year of tuition and supplies for school. And I could say, that's what I would like to do. Okay, every kid, I'm going to get the names of all the kids, every kid in town, I'm going to give every single kid $10,000 and then say, oh, well, you know what, I don't have $10,000. No duh, that's why people don't do that. No duh. It's not practicable. So there's no use willing that. There's no use desiring what's impossible. And being responsible isn't making the most ambitious schedule. What's responsible and prudent is making a responsible and realistic schedule that taking into consideration your human weakness, which is real, and your desires, and finding the balance where the two of those things create a realistic plan for your day. There can be no excuses because your plan should take into consideration all of the factors in your life. Well, I can't do that. I've got 4. Then you should have a schedule of a woman who has 4 children, not a schedule of a single 26-year-old who's free to do whatever she wishes today. You should have a schedule for your life, for your homeschool, based on what you can do. And it should give you an idea of what you're going to do today, and it should give you an idea of what you're going to do this hour. And if you would do the work, to establish that schedule, which is what your principal work in homeschooling will prove to be, is just establishing the family schedule. Especially if you're a homeschool mother and you have the luxury, I should say, of staying at home and devoting all of your attention to your family. The principal work that you're going to achieve in your family's life is in establishing and maintaining a responsible daily schedule. That schedule is going to give you the present-mindedness that allows you to live like a saint, not like some nasty monster in the house. That quiet present-mindedness of a nun is owed to her schedule. She knows what she can do. She knows what she can't do. She focuses on the day hour by hour. She never goes out of that schedule and gets into trouble. She never desires things that she knows that she's not going to be able to do. She stays within that routine, within that schedule, and she lives a good, peaceful life. Present-minded, following the bell schedule, as it was. Your principal work as a homeschooling parent is going to be establishing a responsible schedule that's good for your children. And in that responsible schedule, there are going to be blocks of time available for studies. And because you have so many days and so much time for home studies, during that hour, if that hour is set aside for math studies or foreign language studies or religion or whatever it's for, you're going to enter into that hour and focus on that subject and say, let's get done what we can get done in this hour. What's realistic? Let's memorize the next question in the catechism. Let's read the next chapter in the scriptures. Let's work on that next math problem and see what we can get done in this hour. And when the alarm goes off and the hour is up, you close up that work, put things away for the next day, and move on to the next hour of tasks on the schedule. And it's that calm and peacefulness that will actually allow your children to be calm. They'll know what the default schedule is each day, and they'll settle into it mentally. They'll get used to the routine. And if you can take a good, responsible day and then multiply it by 10,000 days, that's how you're going to achieve great things in homeschooling. And there will be time in the schedule for exercise, for play, for rest, for meals, for leisure. The schedule will be happy and pleasant and realistic. And the little bit of positive work that gets done in those days academically, multiplied by thousands of those days, and remember, 1,000 days is just 3 years. Multiplied by thousands of days, that's how great things academically will be achieved within the context of a peaceful and holy life. That's how it will get done. That stress has nothing to do with real achievement in home education. And so if you're a parent and you know that you're bringing that stress into the homeschool, or you have that stress, and you imagine that that stress is coming into you from outside, you're wrong. That stress is not coming into you from outside. That stress is starting within you and is coming out into your family life. That stress is coming from within you. If you're around people who achieve great things in life, you'll notice that they're calm. They're calm. They don't get stressed out. They always stay level. They're always working. They're always moving forward. They're patient. They're balanced. They move little by little, day by day, and they give themselves thousands of days to get great things done because they know that there's not going to be any competition. There's not going to be any competition because they see everybody around them talking with ridiculous, ambitious ideas, not doing today's tasks, not maintaining balance in life. And they know that no one's going to compete. And that's what allows them to just work little by little, day by day. And they accomplish great things after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And that's how homeschooling works. And if you don't learn to manage it, if you don't learn the role of a parent in homeschooling, it's not going to work. And it's not the kids, it's your fault. You don't know what to do. You need to reach out and get help from a teacher who does know what to do. And then you need to be able to be present-minded with the children and allow them to enjoy life as a homeschooling family in a calm, peaceful, present-minded family that doesn't talk about tomorrow, that isn't talking about anxious cares and thoughts. What are you going to do when you go? Where are you going to go? What are you going? Those kind of thoughts are contrary to a Christian spirit. Because if you take care of today's work and do so tomorrow and the next day and the next day, you'll be in position for all of those things to go well. And if you sit here today and talk about all those things, constantly talking about the future, constantly talking about these questions and problems and what if and what about, you're going to neglect the work that needs to be done right now and cause yourself to be unprepared for those events in the future. The only way to responsibly prepare for that future is to work right now on responsible, practicable tasks. And that's what homeschool parents fail to do. So if you are a stressed out homeschool parent, I want to tell you, like Jesus told people, stop being anxious. You have to stop that. It's not cute. It's not your personality, not funny, not just your way. It's destructive, and you have to stop it because it's like a poison in the family. You have to get out of that anxious spirit, and you can. That's the good news. You can get out of that spirit and focus on the present. You may need help to do that, but you can become present-minded, and your kids and your husband or your wife, they need you to be present-minded and peaceful. The stress is hypocritical because it's caused by you not knowing what you're doing and not actually carrying out your responsibilities well, and then pretending like you're a strict person. Well, if you were so strict, you'd have this stuff figured out. The fact that you don't proves you're not so strict with yourself. You're just trying to pretend you're strict with the kids. And all that vexation is coming from your own frustrated and irrational desires. So it has to be fixed. If you don't know what to do, ask for help. Ask for help, because these things are not complicated. These things are not difficult. Your family can enjoy a very successful homeschool experience with no stress, but you may need advice and help, and you have to humble yourself to admit that you're not the answer to every problem. And you need help in academics. It's not a big deal. It's what teachers are for. Ask for help. A simple way to get help is to arrange a consultation meeting with me. They're free. They're free. So it's not some kind of financial pitch or anything like that. If you want to talk about education, you need some advice from an experienced teacher who's also been a homeschooling father for 22 years. There are consultation meetings available anytime you want them. Reserve one and set up a meeting. That's a good way to start. The talks that I've had with parents in these consultations, they've been awesome. One of the coolest things, one of the best things that happens is a husband and wife couple will actually sit together for a consultation with me. Those discussions are awesome because as a husband and wife, you've really got to be on the same page and work through these things, and to be able to sit together and talk through those things is really, really helpful. So that's available. Send a message, ask questions, read articles, watch videos, ask questions. You have to reach out for help because homeschooling is not difficult. It's not difficult. And if you're stressed, something's wrong. You don't understand what you're doing. You're not doing it right. And you have to fix that because homeschooling is very pleasant, very effective, and should be joyful. You're with your kids, for heaven's sake. How can you possibly be unhappy with your own children? Doesn't make any sense. So reach out for help. Deal with that anxiety. Understand that it's not just an academic problem or your personality. It's a Christian problem. It's a spiritual and moral problem that needs to be fixed, or you're going to ruin your children's homeschool experience, which is really unfortunate because it's happy. So I hope that that's helpful. These kids, they face lots of trials and challenges. When I work with the kids, I see kids who are doing good. They can make progress little by little, but it's often the parents just coming out of nowhere with expectations and standards and demands that they can't explain or justify, creating all this chaos and frustration. and the poor kids are sitting there trying to get through the next lesson. Take the pressure off the kids. Make homeschooling joyful. Stop thinking about tomorrow. Ask for help so that you can become present-minded as a homeschooled parent. The most important thing you're going to do as a homeschooled parent is not explain lessons to kids, all these crazy things homeschool parents do, which we never see the end of them. They all burn out and disappear. If you really want to achieve great things, the most important thing you're going to do is establish a happy family life with a realistic, responsible, practicable daily schedule for your family. Be a parent. Your children need you to be a parent, not to pretend you're a teacher. If you need help, ask a teacher, because these things aren't difficult. So I hope that that's helpful. That's an observation of mine that I've wanted to share based on my interactions with the kids. Take the pressure off the kids and off yourself, and learn how to think about these things, because it should be all positive and happy in Christian homeschooling. God bless.